So this is a character animator puppet that I created entirely from just one AI generated image. If you want to learn this, keep watching. Hello everyone, welcome to 2 and 3D. So if you are new here, please give us a sub to really help us. Give us a like also to help us reach more people. So let's just jump straight into this. So what I did here was I was giving a client contacted me and sent me just this AI generated just this image. Normally when you want to create a puppet like this, the image has to be very good. So what I ended up doing was I passed it through Real SGAN. It's an AI enhancer or something like that, an upscaler. So I upscaled the image to a better quality. At least it was way better compared to the initial version. So after that, initially I started in Photoshop, but I do not like Photoshop selection tool. So I ended up passing it through Adobe Illustrator. Went through Illustrator. When you place it in Illustrator, what you do is you use the pen tool and then you just draw through it, and then what you do is to clip it, you clip mask it, and that is exactly what I kept doing. So I was able to separate parts that I actually needed to animate independently. So stuff like the arm, as you can see, I was doing the arm. I separated her tail, I separated her face, her eyes, just all those parts that would actually move, or things that you might actually place over another. So just you just layer it, but I did not actually layer it here. What I just did was just crop out those parts and then you move it to Photoshop. So you can do this process. You do not have to use Adobe Illustrator. This is just my own way of doing it. You could actually do everything in Photoshop, and for characters like this I will recommend you use Photoshop. Normally I will tell you to always stick to Adobe Illustrator because that is actually the best software, at least for puppets, that I've actually used. So but for textured characters like these, characters that sort of like have this blended kind of um, shading, so or more realistic kind of shading, I will say you should stick to Photoshop. So what I did was I separated her iris, separated her just any moving part, any part that you think you would actually be moving. Those are the parts you have to actually crop out or mask out in my own case. So that's basically it. And then you keep doing that and doing that, and then you move it into Photoshop, and then when you move it to Photoshop, that is where you now start layering. But before I actually started working on this in Photoshop, I ended up what I did was there were parts that I had to draw, like her eyes. I had to use the, what is it called, the color ramp. Is it color ramp? Yeah, I think color ramp. So to be able to get her kind of shading in Adobe Illustrator, because it's not something that you can just easily texture in Adobe Illustrator. Brow, I had to manually draw those because I actually want her to be able to blink and her to be able to have all these the eye should not just be one particular shape, so you should be able to move from like wide to close and like that gradually, so that you'll be able to create a cycle trigger for her eyes closing and stuff like that. So that's basically it. Then you export it into Photoshop. When you're exporting into Photoshop, what you have to do is if you're using this my method, what you have to do is after making everything, you can rasterize your image, and you can go in and just rasterize everything, and make sure you rasterize it with alpha so that it's transparent, so that it's a transparent background, so that it's not just white, it's not block white. And after doing that, what you now do is you now make everything visible, because when you're exporting to Photoshop, for some reason, when you move from AI to, that's Adobe Illustrator, when you moved from Adobe Illustrator to Photoshop, like when you're exporting it to PSD, what happens is the layers that are not visible, for some reason they do not export. So you have to make those visible, and in some cases you might have to you might have to place them in their separate layers, just so that it will be able to it will pick those layers. If not, it will end up merging everything into one, and that is not what you want. I've gone through this over and over, and honestly, I would say if you love Photoshop, if you are used to Photoshop, just stick to Photoshop for this kind of characters, because it's a bit more complex. The procedure is more complex when you're doing it when you're using my method. But I stick to my method because I actually prefer it, and Photoshop is a bit slower on my system. Aside from that, Photoshop tools, I'm not just used to Photoshop tools, I'm used to drawing, so that is why I use this method. So that's basically what you have to do in Adobe Illustrator. Well, that was not really all I did. So I had to separate some parts of the hair because um, when the when the client one of the requirements for the one of the requirements client gave to me was he wants the character to be able to have the hair to be like float in water. So I had to separate some of those and actually make them like separate layers so that I'll be able to move those, at least use the physics in Adobe Character Animator. And then I went in and then I drew the mouth. So what I do, how I do the mouth is I draw the upper lip and then the lower lip, especially for characters like this, very like very realistic characters like this. You cannot just be drawing it anyhow. There's no drawing it might be a bit more difficult. So what I just do is I just morph the mouth into different shapes and then I draw whatever shape. So I imported one of my mouths and then I followed, like tried to mimic what it is in like frontal view and like with morphing and stuff like that. So I moved, I you mostly move the lower lip, do not move the upper lips. You hardly, in fact I hardly move the upper lips, because the upper lips in real life, when you're actually talking, the upper lips, it does move, but it's less obvious compared to the lower lip. So in animation you could just ignore that little movement and just work on the lower lip. That will actually look good, even to look way better than even moving the upper lip. So all you do is to go through the shapes, and if you do not have a mouth, like I actually have free mouth on the side, so on my side, so you could go there and just get those, and at least it will give you some reference, so you'll be able to draw your own mouth shapes without any hassle. um so that's what you just keep doing. Just go in, draw whatever mouth shape, just keep doing that and doing that and doing that. And the reason why I actually did this in Adobe, you could actually do this in Photoshop also, but I actually prefer doing this in Adobe Illustrator because I can easily manipulate it. Well, there is also a tool in Photoshop, I think it's called what is it called? I've actually forgotten the name of the tool, but I know that there is a tool in Photoshop that I can actually do this even as good as, even way better than even Adobe Illustrator. But I'm used to Adobe Illustrator, so I stick to that. So what I'm doing here is just preparing the character for exporting. So all I'm doing here is creating new layers and then placing things, every single every group of every image that I've actually cropped, I just place them into those this, and then I make everything visible and then export it. And then now we're in Photoshop, and in Photoshop this is where you do the arrangement. So in my own case, how I arrange my character is, the first layer is the character, that is the main layer. So it's the character plus the plus character. I put plus because so that to be independent in Adobe Character Animator. So you make that independent, and then there is something that I place inside it, that is the profile. So I put the frontal. So under character there is the profiles. There you place the profiles there. So in my own case, this character will only be used, I will only be relying on the frontal profile for this character. So that is what I did. So you come in and then you create the frontal under the character, and then under that you create, that's where you now create head and body, and under head you create another head. That is where you now place the different profiles of headers if you have those. And it's always good to have space for those, because so that your characters can it will be easier for you to just come in and just add a profile or do whatever like that, and you do not have to worry about some of these issues. So this is me actually experimenting with some of the tools in Photoshop, and God, I was bad at it, like seriously bad at it. I was just trying to use what tool was this? I think it was the what is it called, healing tool or something like that. So I tried to use that, and honestly it was a complete failure. I tried to even mitigate the damages, like fix certain things, but at this point it was far gone. So I just had to restart it. I reverted the character and I started afresh. And then in this case I used what tool is it? See, I'm really not used to Photoshop, but I actually know the tool, so I just used that tool, and then I cleaned up the character a bit, just fixed certain things, and this worked perfectly. So what I'm doing here is, this is just the face, so I'm supposed to eliminate every single facial feature because those are independent of the face. And in animation, when I'm coming to animate, I'm actually supposed to place those things over the face. So you cannot place them over a visible eye under the face. So that's why I had to clean those. And what I'm doing here is I'm just cropping out, just deleting, cleaning all those those white spots, because it's a bit difficult to do those in do that in Adobe Illustrator. So I moved it to Photoshop, and then come in here and then just select the area that I want to clean, and then just make those selections, and then you use your eraser and then you clean those parts. And that's what I just kept doing here. So this is the hair that I'm working on right now. So what I'm doing is I'm using that same tool that I used for the face. I'm using to like clean just the, her face, because this entire layer that I'm working on is her hair. So I'm supposed to, and this is the hair that is behind the head of the character. So what I'm doing here is I'm cleaning every single trace of like her face and stuff like that, just her body, because those are actually part of the image. So you have to find a way to get rid of those, and then you find a way to like make it more realistic. So after cleaning this, what I did was I used the patch tool, and then I repopulated the hair. Like, I don't know if it makes sense, but maybe if you see it, I believe in like the next few seconds you'll be able to see what I did. So this is where I started using the patch tool. So you can see I used the patch tool, selected the patch, an area I wanted to patch, and then select those, and then use a different layer and then repopulate that particular place. So you can see that the hair is now looking very, very luscious and looking very, very good. And well, since this will actually be behind our head, it's not something that you'll be able to see, so you do not have to stress about it. You don't have to rework and make it perfect. But any part that will be visible, you have to actually come in and make sure it is looking very, very good. So these are the independent hair that I was talking about, that I actually want them to be wavy, like she's in water or something like that. So I want this to actually be wavy, and that is why I had to separate those. And then the eyebrow, just keep layering these things when you layer it. So under her head, there are two heads. There's one head under another head. There I placed features, and then in the facial features, that's where I put the eyebrow, the nose, in this case no nose, because the nose comes with the face. So the nose, the mouth, and whatever, and that's where I place everything. And this is me trying to like recreate the her tail, and I use the patch tool to actually repopulate that area so that it looks nice. And the same thing I'm doing here. So I repopulated that area, and that part is not going to be visible, but I'm a perfectionist, so I like fixing things that even will not be visible. So yeah, I wasted so much time on those, but those are actually stuff that you do not have to worry about. Some of these things that will not be visible. So now I moved it into Character Animator, and then I started working on like rigging the character and stuff like that. This is where I rigged her brow, rigged her hair to be able to move like it's in water and stuff like that. So basically all you just do is, I have a video for this. I do not want to jump into this. We have so many videos on the channel that covers rigging like more comprehensively, so this I'm just going to breeze through this. So all you just do is to use the pen, the dangle tool for her hair to be able to move like that, for it to be able to respond to physics, like physics in the engine. I said the engine, the animator. So I added a draggable to her tail. I added draggable to her iris, and just some other few places like that. You add draggables, you add some, you tag those areas. Just follow the tutorial, my other videos, and you'll be able to understand what I'm doing right here. So that's basically it. That's how I created something. That's how I created this character. So thank you for watching. Please give us a like, give us a sub. It will help us to reach more people, and it will also help us to reach you more contents like this in the future. Thank you, and bye for now.